You have to truly believe in the magic.
Hey Magic fans, and welcome to Penny for Your Thoughts, the podcast of the Orlando Magic UK. We're recording this Friday, the 2nd of June, and on today's episode, we're going to be talking to friend of the show, Philip Rossman-Reich of Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic podcast about the draft and what an importance some of this could be for the Magic. But first, though, a couple of introductions. I'm joined by my good friends, Geraint and Gary. G, how you doing, pal?
I'm good, thank you, mate. Friday, sun is shining, and you're back on the podcast. What more could we want? It's been too long, mate. I
am making a flying visit because next week I'm at Download. I shall be rocking my ass off. hopefully drinking beer in the sun and watching some good bands. So yeah, it's a flying visit, this one, pal.
Good stuff. How were your gigs last couple of weeks? You enjoy them?
Mate, the Def Leppard one was a bit of a treat because that was, for those that don't know, they played a charity show in a small club. And the show was in support of independent music venues. So an arena filling band played a club show, full band, full electric, full stage set. In front of 800 people, and we were lucky enough to be two of those, myself and my wife. It was absolutely stunning. It was one of those nights that you stand there and think, wow, and the place was rocking. Everybody was up for it. It was a really great night. So yeah, I'm thoroughly pleased to be back. And Gary, how's you, mate?
Well, I'm just seeing us three on the screen here, and I'm thinking "Sun's out, guns out." So
absolutely, pal, has to be done. I mean, I'm rocking the old City Edition
Evan Fournier.
Evan Fournier. The only reason it's an Evan Fournier is because it was the only one that was available at the point when I decided to buy it. It was the only one that was left in the NBA store at the time. But hey, it's a bit of a throwback shirt. I thought I fancied wearing that. I've not wore it for a bit. But yeah,
who
so
you
boys,
rocking? Yeah,
I've got France.
You gone France? I've got AG. After his
performance last night.
Absolutely.
I did have to laugh at the tweet. I assume it was you that put it out, G.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
About we found Jimmy Butler. Apparently he was in Aaron's pocket all night.
Oh, the card of Kwame strikes again.
Yeah, I like that one, mate. But let's get this bit done. Before we get into this, we've got a couple of quick plugs. First date to remember, June the 22nd, when we have the NBA draft, and we will again be hosting our live watch party. So please join us to find out who the Magic pick. Mike is presently working out all the details, and full information on that will be out very soon. Second date to remember, and something we've spoken about before, is Saturday the 15th of July, which is the first Orlando Magic UK meetup. It's going to be happening. So if you fancy joining us and haven't already been in touch, please reach out to us. G's currently collating everything on that. Then, finally, there's a Visit Fanatics International NBA Store EU via the links on our website for all your sports jersey needs, be it the NBA, Formula One, NFL, NHL, or Premier League. But much to my disappointment, I guess I won't be ordering a Premier League jersey, as Leeds didn't manage to make that survival.
We weren't going to mention it, mate.
Mate, there's no point in me ignoring it. Look, on the bright side, mate, you and I get to have a rivalry again next season.
Oh, we got 6 points, haven't we?
Mate, you know full well that we always lose at your gaff. So,
yeah, you do. I will have a bit of banter. Obviously, Sunderland, Leeds, and Cardiff now in the same division. So
absolutely, I forgot Sunderland got promoted. Of course, yeah.
It's a big.
Grabbed it last day of the season.
It's a big. The championship next season, when you look at it, actually looks like a really top end league when you see the teams who are in it. And then it's interesting. Look, the championship next year.
Yeah, it is. But if you are using any of our links, also remember to use the affiliate code. Hang on. Let's start. My phone decided to jump onto low power mode. That's going to be interesting for the rest of this. Use our affiliate code Magic UK 10 to get 10% off of the total order. Certain exclusions may apply. And finally, head over to our own t-shirt store, our own online web store, magicfansapparel.tmail.com. This week we've added a whole lot of new designs, and it helps support do what we do. So treat yourself to a hoodie or a t-shirt. Slow week for the Magic news. Literally, it is just the preseason's been officially released. Visit to Cleveland is sandwiched between 2 games with the Pelicans, and the final exhibition game is a visit of Brazilian side Flamengo to the Amway Centre. Gents, what's your thoughts on that? Gary?
It'll be interesting, I think, when you see the Brazilian game, given the large community which is in Florida and such. I think that'll be good. But overall, it just seems to be tipping the scales to one eye on next season now. I know the finals are on, but let's be honest, we're more looking towards the draft and free agency. So I think it just real that we've started getting 1 toe into the water for next season.
G, happy with the other 3?
Yeah, I mean, Cleveland and New Orleans, they're no bottom dwellers, are they? Obviously, we're not going to see starters play heavy minutes in the early ones. They'll probably ramp them up towards as close as we get to the regular season home opener and the away opener. But Cleveland made the playoffs. New Orleans are very talented, so it'd be an opportunity to pit your wits against a decent ball club. Yeah,
we say every year about the exhibition games. It's not about the result, it's about getting fitness and understanding. That's all they are about. Anything else you take. Okay, everyone, as you can now see, we are joined by probably one of the hardest working guys in all of the NBA media, our very good friend Philip Rossman-Reich. Phil, how you doing?
I am doing good. Happy to be here with you guys.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. Now, we know that you are, as we've just said, a very busy man, and you are on a tight schedule today. So we genuinely do appreciate it, but we'll get straight into it because there's so much to talk about for the Magic at this moment in time. I mean, you've been talking almost non-stop about the importance of this summer, and at times you've been taking a little bit of heat for a couple of opinions.
A little bit.
But, so our apologies in advance, because we're going to talk about exactly the same thing, the Magic's needs, the draft, and we're going to touch a little bit on free agency. So first off, I've got to ask you the question. Are you drafting for need or best fit?
I mean, this is the debate, honestly. And I will admit that as I've gone through the early parts of my draft process, I have leaned more toward need because judging by everything that Magic players have said, Paolo Banchero said it. It seems to be echoed throughout the whole franchise. Jamal Mosley said it's time to level up again. It feels like this team is on the cusp of making a push to get into the postseason, whatever that looks like. It feels like they're ready to start winning at a more serious level or to be held to that winning standard. And so when I've looked at this offseason, I see this offseason as an opportunity to kind of shore the team up, to put them in the best spot to make that postseason run. The Magic have their star. Paolo Banchero has all the characteristics, has all the looks of a star. And what now that clock is ticking, like, let's be real, it's a clock. You got 8 years to figure this out before you really have to start panicking and worrying about things. Now that clock is ticking, everything the Magic should have some idea of making him better, of making Franz Wagner better, of making this whole thing kind of work together. And I think next year is still a little bit about experimenting and a little bit about seeing what else, who else is going to come along for the ride. Is Markelle Fultz ready to make another leap in his game? Can Jalen Suggs be the shooter that the Magic need? How does Wendell Carter fit into this kind of environment? Can he step his game up for the playoffs? And you don't know any of this until you actually see it all play out with the expectations. And so to me, a lot of this summer is about making this team better and having just like a clearer vision of what this team's going to be. Not necessarily what they are now or what they'll be next year, but what they're going to be when you're ready to compete for championships. Having said that, when you're drafting 6th and you're this high in the draft, you do have to think about talent. You're getting, maybe, hopefully, this last bite at the apple to get another star and another young star onto your team. And so while I think fit is really, really important and feeds into what talent you're looking for, you can't ignore talent. Talent is talent. And at the end of the day, talent's going to win you games. Talent, Boston had a really bad playoff run, but they're so talented they still got to the conference finals. I mean, you still need good players, and this Magic team isn't a complete picture yet, and we shouldn't treat them as a complete picture yet. So, I'm going to give you the lawyer answer. It depends. You can make a strong argument either way, and I think that's kind of actually exciting that the Magic can still add talent and still feel very comfortable that they have something that can work and gel together into a playoff team even as soon as next year. But at the same time, I think the Magic do need to put extra emphasis and extra focus on setting up next year's team to be the postseason team we all think they can be.
Yeah. It's such an interesting one. It really is. G, go for it, man.
Yeah. So what I was just gonna, it leads on nicely. It's actually to my question. Your perfect draft night, Phil. Realistically, then, who are you looking to take at 6 and 11? Now, you spoke just there about need, and obviously shooting is a need. But the fact we've got 2 picks, obviously. You got 2 swings at it, don't you? You could draft 2 shooters here, or you could go for a Hendricks or somebody at 6, hopefully. I don't know, for me, you want Grady Dick to potentially fall to 11. But so what does your perfect draft night look like?
Yeah, to that point, I'll go ahead and make predictions, or I don't think I have like a perfect prospect. I have groups of guys that I'm really comfortable with, but I think regardless of anything else on draft night, I went through that whole screed about need and talent. Regardless of anything on draft night, you're right. That second pick gives you cover to make sure you fill at least a need. You have 2 bites at the apple. One of them needs to be a major hit. That's what happened in the last draft when the Magic get two picks. Jalen Suggs, Franz Wagner. Wagner was such a huge hit that, it's okay that Suggs struggled a little bit out of the gate. You had the cover for that. And the Magic, I think, need to make sure they get someone, at least one of these 2 players, that allows them that can contribute immediately. And so for me, regardless of anything else, it doesn't matter if you pick it at 6, it doesn't matter if you pick it at 11, it doesn't matter if you trade for it. The Magic need to come out of draft night with a shooter. They need to just have that need filled. They need to just be comfortable enough to say, this box is checked. We've covered ourselves here. It's not to preclude them from grabbing a shooter in free agency or elsewhere, but they need to make sure that they come out with a shooter. And so for me, my ideal draft is at 11 at least, taking Grady Dick or Jordan Hawkins. If you come and all odds look like that one of those 2 guys will be available at 11. If the Magic come away from this draft with one of those 2 guys, probably the 2 best shooters in this draft, they will have done a very good job, in my opinion. It doesn't matter who they take at 6. They could take a big swing. They could take an Ausar Thompson, who I think does have star potential and is someone worth looking into at a very high level. I have a lot of questions about him as well, but he is a very high upside pick. You can take a big cut and try and swing for the fences a little bit. And I like Ausar Thompson over Cam Whitmore because of Asar's defensive ability. Even though Whitmore's a great athlete, Ausar Thompson's probably a better athlete than him. Despite the shooting questions that honestly both players have. You could end up taking a Taylor Hendricks, which is a little bit of a safer pick. I think Hendricks can be a starter in this league, but I think he's more likely to be a solid rim protector to put next to a big like Wendell Carter, a guy who can space the floor. And I think he can develop a 3-point shot at the NBA level. But I don't know what his upside. I don't know if his upside is star. Like, he's probably a good role player starter. Certainly a guy that can be effective coming off the bench, but I'm not sure he's got star potential. And so at 6, I'm fine taking a number of guys. I'd be fine taking Ausar Thompson. I'd be fine taking Cam Whitmore. I'd be fine taking Taylor Hendricks. I'd be fine reaching for Grady Dick at 6. I know a lot of people don't think that that you should take Grady Dick at 6 because he doesn't have that upside. You kind of know exactly what he is. I'm a guy that just believes if you have your guy, if you believe this guy is the guy you want to draft, it doesn't matter what every mock draft says. It doesn't matter what every big board says. Your board's the only board that matters. Take the guy that you believe in. So I wouldn't be surprised at that. I wouldn't be surprised if they take an Anthony Black, although I think the fit and it's definitely a little bit questionable, even as a 6'7" guard who's just a really good defender. I wouldn't mind the Magic trading back from 6 to like 8 or 9. If someone's really desperate for that star, Orlando doesn't need a star right now. We got Paolo, we got Franz, we got Markelle, who we think can be something more. We don't need to get a high upside guy. So if you can convince a Washington or an Oklahoma City or even a Dallas to say like, hey, take a shot at Asar Thompson, take a shot at Cam Whitmore. They might fit your roster better. Get some extra assets, move back to like 8, 9, even 10. Grab your Taylor Hendricks, grab both shooters. Who cares? I think the point of this is the Magic have a lot of options. And to me, all that matters is they come out of the night with a shooter. If they get one of Grady Dick or Taylor Hendricks, or not Taylor Hendricks, I'm sorry, Jordan Hawkins. If they get Taylor Hendricks too, that would be great. If they get one of those two shooters, especially, that would be a good draft, in my opinion.
And you'd be happy if we got both shooters. Sorry, Gary. If we reached for Grady Dick and then we went for the other shooter at 11, you'd be happy. Oh yeah, no, I mean, why not? Like, we know how desperately this team needs shooting. I will. My only caution with doing both is, as Jeff Weltman likes to say, young guys need a path to play, and this roster is getting pretty loaded, and they're gonna add some guys in free agency, and so you look at like team needs. Guard feels pretty set. Markelle Fultz, Cole Anthony man the two guard positions. Gary Harris, Jalen Suggs are at the two guard. You're running out of space for those guys to play. Like, I think Hawkins can play some 3. I think Grady Dick can play some 3. But again, talent is talent. You figure out how to make it work on the floor. If you have talent, you have shooting, that makes everyone's life easier. So I wouldn't be opposed to it if that's what it comes down to. I don't think it's likely, but I wouldn't be opposed to it.
You alluded there to a trade back. What might that look like if it were to happen?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't gone through all the permutations, but let's say Washington wants to move up and grab, an Asar Thompson to kind of support what they have. They might lose Kyle Kuzma in free agency. That doesn't seem likely. They might like Anthony Black at point guard, and they're afraid that, an Indiana might take him at 7. A trade like that probably looks like you're swapping first round picks. Maybe the Magic get a lottery protected first out of it. Maybe the Magic, I had some conversations, we did our Locked On mock draft, which will be unveiled a little bit closer to the draft, and will be completely wrong and different by the time we air it. I had some conversations with the Wizards. Maybe they'd be willing to throw a Denny Avdia, give the Magic, kind of a second draft opportunity at someone who has kind of struggled a little bit in that one environment, maybe going to another environment toward the end of his rookie contract's the way to go. Maybe you grab a second round pick out of that, maybe just a lottery protected first. You can net some future assets out of that. And that might be worth trading back a couple spots, to still get your guy later on in the draft.
So to add to Gary's just question there, round draft choice as well in the low 30s, if we keep the first 2, do you see us keeping the second rounder? Or
it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, we know what this Magic team, we know what Jeff Weltman likes to do with second round picks. This team is very loaded on young players, and honestly, one of the things I want to see the Magic do this offseason is get a little bit older. Get some veteran free agents and make sure those veterans are playing, because Gary Harris is great. They probably need one more grizzled veteran to help this team really kind of, especially in the locker room, just to help them prepare for what's coming in the playoffs. Because, the coach can say all that he wants to say, but players talk to each other and players listen to each other a lot too. So I do find it very hard to believe that the Magic would add a third rookie. But, I think the NBA is allowing a third 2-way contract next year. It wouldn't surprise me if they pick a player, like a Tristan Vukovic, or even if he's still there, it doesn't look like he's going to be there, like a Darek Whitehead, and say, hey, take a gap year. You're going to be on a 2-way. We'll put you on a 2-way contract in G League, or even stay, if it's Vukovic, maybe stay in Europe for another year or 2, maybe try and stash someone there, or say, hey, take a year in the G League, especially like a Darek Whitehead, who was hurt a lot of last year, is still going through a foot injury, but is still extremely talented. He was a top 10 prospect entering college at Duke. just had a very injury-filled year, really didn't live up to his potential. That guy is still very, very talented. That talent doesn't necessarily go away. So if you give him a year to get healthy, they tried that with Chuma Okeke, obviously. There's still a lot of options. And of course, there's always the option to trade down in the second round to get a stash guy, net a future second round pick, maybe net some cash in the process, maybe trade that for a veteran that a team is looking to unload. There's still a lot of options you can go through. So yeah, I find it really hard to believe there'll be 3 rookies on the Magic's roster at the start of next season. But if the right guy's there, the right guy's there.
Yeah. So free agency then obviously follows the draft. You've told us who you'd like to target in the draft, but what kind of veterans would you look to add? Someone like Naz Reid or Nikola Vucevic would be nice, but that might not happen.
That's happening.
No.
Yeah, no. I mean, I think free agency, like if the unless the Magic draft Derek Lively with 11, again, center from Duke, really good rebounder. Like Paolo Banchero almost was kind of pigeonholed into a certain role to help the team and didn't really show the full breadth of his game. He's really impressed a lot of scouts with his shooting ability in his pre-draft workouts. Again, we'll see how much of that translates to the NBA. But for me personally, I would prefer that the Magic really focus in on getting a veteran backup center in free agency or at some point of the offseason. You look at Wendell Carter, and I love Wendell Carter. I think he's very, very good. He has not played. I think the most games he's played in this season is 67. It's like 60, somewhere between 67 and 70. At this point, I think you have to plan on him missing 15 to 20 games a year. And to me, that means you need a high level backup center. Like Mo Wagner was great, had a great season, really earned his keep. He was the worst defensive center at the rim in the entire league last year. Among centers who played regular minutes, no center had a worse field goal percentage at the rim, defended at the rim than Mo Wagner. Goga Batadze is really good, was a fantastic player for this team. Would not surprise me if the Magic bring him back. But are you going to rely on either of those two guys to start, almost a quarter of a season for you? And so I think that Naz Reid would be a really good option to bring in because you can play him a little bit at the 4. You can play him next to Wendell Carter. You have some versatile lineups that way. I think Wendell Carter does better when he has a rim protector next to him, which again is maybe an attraction to drafting a Taylor Hendricks. But I think that backup center is probably the biggest need no one's really talking about among Magic fans. And it wouldn't surprise me if that's where the Magic, as much as everyone's talking about like Austin Reeves and Gary Trent Jr. and Max Strus and Gabe Vincent as potential free agency options, even Lonnie Walker is a potential free agency option. I think that the Magic probably spend more of their time focusing on that backup center spot, in some way, shape, or form.
Naz Reid would be my choice. I would love to see that guy come into the team. I think he has an awful lot to offer to us.
Yeah, hard, people don't think so much about him because he's kind of been stuck in Minnesota. He's been behind Karl-Anthony Towns. He wasn't necessarily the odd man out, but you look at that Minnesota team, they really kind of fell off when two things kind of derailed their season a little bit. Karl-Anthony Towns missed a ton of games, but Naz Reid getting hurt late in the season. And then, who was it? I forget. I'm blanking on his name. Jaden McDaniels breaking his hand after he punched the wall late in the season. That killed any chance Minnesota had of competing with Denver in that first round series. It probably led to them losing to the Lakers in the first play-in game. Naz Reid is a very energetic defender, a very underrated three-point shooter. He can spread the floor a little bit. He's a guy that's just going to fit in and make your team better. And he made Minnesota better and whoever ends up paying him, though, he'll make them better.
Yeah. A lot of people's talking about the 2 guard spot, which it's hard to do because it seems as though it's the season for trade scenarios popping up on Twitter. And we're seeing Gary Harris, Jalen Suggs, Cole Anthony. Then we're seeing talk of guys like Austin Reeves, who people would like to throw the bag at. Who would you like to see in the starting role at the 2 next season?
I mean, honestly, I would like to see Jalen Suggs earn his way into that starting lineup. And I think, yes, the Magic have $23 million or so of cap room to spend. But I think that the way this Magic team has always approached the offseason, they're not going to throw a lot of money at one guy. It's not that I think Austin Reeves is really good, and I think he would help this team a lot. I don't see the Magic willing to pay $20 million a year for a guy like Austin Reeves. I just don't think that they're ready to like commit financially to that. Like they still want enough financial flexibility to make some moves. They got a plan now. Markelle Fultz is extension eligible this summer. Cole Anthony is extension eligible this summer. They got to plan a little bit for their futures as well. And I think they'll try and get an extension done with both. It wouldn't surprise me if Cole ends up going into the season without a new deal and it hits restricted free agency next summer. I think Markelle, they probably end up getting a deal, some kind of deal done with. And so you got to start aligning your books a little bit. Obviously like Jonathan Isaac has a $17 million contract that's kind of sitting around their neck a little bit. Obviously hasn't affected them, but they got to start thinking, okay, we've got, they got maybe 2 more bites at the big free agency apple. If there's no one they're really willing to commit $20 million, a $20 million contract to right now, they got next summer, and then they got to start paying Franz and they got to start paying Paolo. I mean, the time is running out. Having said that, free agency isn't where you get guys now. So I think it is important to have guys like kind of locked into salary slots so that, you can move guys around. To that same token, Orlando, I think, is really invested in their young players. And I think they want to see and give them the chance to grow. They were really encouraged by the way Jalen Suggs ended his season. I think we all were really encouraged by the way Jalen Suggs ended his season. We were really encouraged by the way Markelle Fultz ended his season. I think they want to see how these guys flip over into next season and to give to not necessarily put extra obstacles. Like they need to get better. They need to shore up this team. And I think depth is probably the bigger need than anything else, than the skill or anything. They just need to have better guys available to them. But they need to see whether Suggs is good. I mean, I think I wrote this a little while ago. The Magic really have to figure out how good they are before they decide what they're going to do. And I just don't think they know how good they are yet. And so I think they need to give some of these young players, especially, a chance to prove themselves before they commit in one direction or another.
I mean, personally, for me, I keep, whenever anybody talks about, oh, Jalen Suggs is a bust, as I saw on somebody's list the other day, how ridiculous is that? I constantly go back to the home court game against Golden State, where he was immense. He took every challenge on that court and met it full on. Jalen Suggs can be a very, very good starting guard, in my opinion. And I would hope that he gets that position, because I do like Cole coming off the bench as a sixth man. That seemed to add something to his game to me.
Yeah, and on the Jalen Suggs point, like the players usually make their biggest growth between their first summer and between their rookie year and their second year in the league. Jalen Suggs did not have a summer. He had the ankle surgery. That knocked out most of his summer to get better, to just improve. We've seen that when Jalen Suggs is healthy, and that's kind of been the big asterisk with him is he's just never healthy. But when he's been able to get consistent playing time for a long period of time, he becomes pretty consistent, and he shot looks a lot better. He feels more comfortable. It just takes him a while to get going when he's been dealing with injuries. And he had so many of these like nagging injuries that just kept slowing him down and getting in his way. And so to me, if I'm the Magic, I say, look, we got to give him a summer to get better. We just got to give him a summer to improve his game. So much of your improvement happens when you're not playing games. You can just focus on yourself and you're not worrying about resting your body and getting ready for a game, or you have 3 games in 4 nights, or 3 games in 4 nights, or 5 games in 7 nights, or whatever the case may be, 5 games in 8 nights, whatever the case may be. It's really hard to get like quality on-court time to really work on your game during the regular season. And that's all Jalen Suggs has had to get better. Give him an off season. Let's see what he looks like in October. It's all, the Magic have already had a month and a half of off season. By the time the draft rolls around, they'll have 2 months. By the time free agency rolls around, they'll have 2 months to like have some type of understanding of where he is. And if they feel like, hey, he's ready to go, he's having a great summer, he's gotten a lot better, hands off the 2-guard spot. Like let's let Jalen and Gary battle it out for that spot, for that role. If they aren't confident where he's at, maybe then maybe they start making some moves that suggest like, okay, we need to shore this up. We're not sure what we have yet. You know, it's the same thing for so many guys on this roster. And so I think that especially with teams like this, where the Magic are starting to like kind of make more serious inroads to winning, everyone wants to say, this is who you are. You know, you're done. You know, this is what you are in this league. You know, one thing that Rob Hennigan said that always sticks with me, and maybe you should take everything that Rob Hennigan says with some grain of salt. Usually by the end of a rookie contract, you know who a player is. You got to give them the rookie contract to figure it out. And you know, maybe you make some conclusions based off you know, some bad play, but for the most part, Jalen Suggs has been an effective defender, which is so hard to do in the league. And he's been an improving shooter. He's shown enough improvement to say, let's give him a chance. And again, if a great player comes along and it's an opportunity you can't pass up, you go for it. You know, you just don't know what's going to happen. It's the NBA. Anything can happen at any time. But I still think that this Magic team needs to give all these young guys that they've been they've given a chance to, that have succeeded in some way. They need to give them the chance to grow. They can't stunt their growth by saying, okay, we know what you are 2 years into your career. That would be the worst thing they could do. Like, they're still going to be discovering new things about Paolo Banchero. Like, Paolo is going to get better next year in ways that we can't imagine right now. And that's the part that's exciting. And that's the part that you can't really plan for yet. And so you just got to let things grow a little bit naturally.
Could you see a scenario with Jalen a little similar to what we saw with RJ last year, RJ Hampton, say, ask him to play at Summer League to get himself more of a summer?
Not to the same extent as RJ. I think RJ had
I'm not comparing the two situations.
Yeah. I would highly doubt that he plays at Summer League. I just don't think he needs it. Like, playing at that level isn't gonna help him as much. Like, we know he's a good defender. We know he can play at an NBA level. He doesn't need to prove anything. And in any case, like, unless they think like, oh, he's ready to be a star and he needs star reps, or we want him to be a point guard, a full-time point guard, so he needs point guard reps. I just don't think he's going to gain much from playing in Summer League other than the potential for failure. I mean, you know, that's, you know, RJ Hampton was still fighting for a spot in the rotation and still fighting to say like, hey, you need me to be a point guard? Let me be a point guard at Summer League. And we saw Hampton really struggle at Summer League. And I think that did kind of paint the picture for him for the rest of the year. There's only downside, I think, to Jalen Suggs playing Summer League. Having said that, do I think Jalen Suggs maybe jumps into a few practices in Summer League or practices with the team when they're in Orlando? Perhaps. You know, he's off doing his own thing. I know he's he's back home in Minneapolis right now. You know, perhaps that helped. Perhaps that is something that they explore. You know, all these guys, they tend to jump into Summer League practices at times too. I don't think Paolo Banchero is going to play Summer League. No. I'd expect Caleb Houston to, but and then the draft picks, obviously. But to me, like, you only do Summer League if you need it. I don't think Jalen Suggs needs it unless the Magic are imagining a starring role for him and they want him to get those reps in. And in that case, he's probably only playing one game, 1.5 games, because they know he's ready for it.
The reason I ask is it was a question I saw online the other day. I thought it was an interesting question. And I had very much a similar opinion to yourself, that I could see him and other members of the team being in Vegas to jump on practice, to be along with the new guys that are being brought into the team. But I didn't see the likelihood of him actually appearing on court.
Oh yeah, they'll all be at Summer League. Like, don't kid yourself. Like, outside of maybe Franz and Mo, who will be prepping for the World Cup at that point, they'll all be at Summer League this year.
Quality. Now, got to go on to just talk about something that keeps popping up. Aaron Gordon having now found a home, featured in Game 1 of the NBA Finals last night. Denver appeared to have given him a perfect role. So, will the Magic regret letting him go? And has the trade actually achieved something for us?
You know, I think that Aaron Gordon is playing the role in Denver that Orlando always wanted him to play.
Yep.
You know, when you looked at his draft profile, when you looked at what they drafted him to do, they imagined he would be a rim runner, a cutter, a defender. That's what they wanted him to be. But when you're drafted fourth in the draft to a team that doesn't have a clear pecking order, you know, Nikola Vucevic was good, not great. Evan Fournier was certainly kind of impressing himself. You know, I think it was either Victor Oladipo or Tobias Harris said this on a podcast shortly after they left the Magic. I think it was Victor Oladipo on like the Woj pod back when he was on the Thunder. And he said, you know, in Orlando, we were all competing against each other. Like we all wanted to be the star. We all wanted to be the guy. We were all fighting for our first big contract. And that just isn't and especially with kind of the coaching uncertainty the Magic had throughout those years, you know, Jacques Vaughn didn't do a great job establishing a foundation. Like the difference between Jacques Vaughn's first 2 years and Jamal Mosley's first 2 years tells you what a good coach, what a good job is in this kind of situation. You know, they cut Jacques Vaughn. They bring in Scott Skiles for a year. Scott Skiles leaves. You bring in Frank Vogel. And in the meantime, you have all these competing interests in the front office fighting each other. It wasn't a good environment. And even like Aaron Gordon's development, the Magic franchise did no favors to Aaron Gordon because they started him off. They wanted him to just be a rim runner, you know, wanted him to play the role that he's essentially playing now in Denver. And that was great. But then he broke his foot, his rookie year, missed a whole chunk of time, was behind the 8 ball there. And he was already pretty raw. Between his first and second year, he gets the injury, but they were starting to develop him more into an on the ball shooter, a kind of driver and scorer. He gets stunted because of the jaw injury. Then Frank Vogel comes in. They try the 2 center lineup. They move him to 3. It doesn't really work. You know, so through Gordon's like first 3-4 years, that whole rookie contract, he just doesn't have like a very good sense of what he's supposed to be. And on top of that, you have a team that's like constantly fighting for attention. You know, they're a bunch of puppies fighting for your attention, essentially. You know, one gets love, the other one wants love back, wants love too. And it's all friendly. It's not like they hated each other, but everyone's kind of fighting against each other a little bit. There's always that tension. And so, you know, what Gordon is in Denver is what he was always supposed to be. The Magic needed a star on that team. You know, for whatever we want to say about this Magic rebuild, Paolo Banchero made everything make sense. Like everyone understands what their role is. Everyone gets their turn, but everyone understands like, oh, we orbit around Paolo Banchero. Like centering the team on him makes everything else make sense. And everyone understands that, oh, like this is the pecking order. This is the guy at the top of the chain. This is the guy that, you know, is going to lead us when we need to be led at the end of games. Like I still think about the New Orleans game from Paolo. I think that was his best game of the season because of how he just took over that game at the end. Those Aaron Gordon Magic teams didn't have that. And so when Aaron Gordon arrives in Denver, they got Nikola Jokic. He's got an MVP award. He would go on to win another one. Like you understand, like, oh, this is that guy. If I do my job, he'll make my life easier. They have a Jamal Murray, you know, to some extent they have a Michael Porter who understands where he fits into this ecosystem. To me, the Aaron Gordon story is one of just having this understanding of what your role is and knowing how to play it perfectly. And if you don't have an environment and an ecosystem that allows you to do that, even really talented players are going to flame out. And so, look, I think Aaron deserves some blame for not working out in Orlando. I think Orlando deserves some blame for Aaron not working out in Orlando. Sometimes that stuff just kind of happens, and the pressure of being the 4th pick, you know, essentially a draft that the Magic tanked 2 years for. They wanted a top 3 pick in that draft. They wanted, you know, I think it was Andrew Wiggins, Jabari Parker, and Joel Embiid. They wanted one of those 3 guys. I was in a long argument with someone about this, about saying like, oh, the Magic were wrong to draft Aaron Gordon. And I was like, okay, who should they have drafted? You know, don't tell me Nikola Jokic, because no one was drafting Nikola Jokic in the first round that year.
Was it 42nd?
42nd? Yeah, way back in the draft. Yeah. You know, so you're going to take who? Julius Randle? You're going to take, you know, you look at the other options. There are only 3 other all-stars you drafted behind Aaron Gordon. One was Zach LaVine, who, fair argument to draft Zach LaVine 11 instead of Elfrid Payton. And Magic are very different if they do that. The other was Nikola Jokic, and I forget, and the third was Julius Randle. Like, it's not like the Magic made a bad pick. They identified talent correctly. They just didn't develop it correctly. And to me, that's honestly the big difference between the Hennigan rebuild and the Weltman rebuild. Like, we're talking with confidence that, hey, Jalen Suggs could be a lot better. I don't know if Jalen Suggs and Victor Oladipo are very similar players, even coming out of college. Oladipo was older coming out of college, so maybe we expected a little bit more from him sooner. Oladipo was never going to become what Victor Oladipo became in Orlando because there's just this lack of direction and vision. Jalen Suggs, we're pigeonholing him maybe into a role, but that's exactly what they need to do to get the most out of him. And we'll see if he can become more. So it's a lesson in how to rebuild and develop correctly. To me, is the Aaron Gordon story, because he got there. He's talented enough. He got there, and now in Denver, they're maximizing his talent, and that's just something that wasn't happening in Orlando, or perhaps Aaron wasn't allowing to happen in Orlando because he wanted to and believed he could still be a star.
Yeah, I do. I am going to say I think there was some ego involved with Aaron.
Oh, for sure.
He was,
but in fairness,
he was never the most effusive to meet as a player. If you were stood in the team tunnel, or all that sort of
he
certainly
fairness,
had less time for you.
In fairness, like, we all pushed that on him too. Like, after the 2019 season, I remember writing like, hey, if the Magic want to get out of the first round, if they want to actually be a good team, Aaron Gordon needs to become a star. Like, they need Aaron Gordon to make that star turn. Nikola Vucevic is great. We love him to death. But this team is going to go as far as Aaron Gordon takes them. And I think sometimes Aaron Gordon's idea of what a star is, the over dribbling, the fadeaway jumpers, that isn't what a star is. He tried to do all the star things without actually understanding what it takes to be a star sometimes. And look, some guys just can't get there.
Yeah, I think the difference that we're seeing with him in Denver to what we saw with ourselves is he doesn't have to play hero ball.
Yeah,
he has others to do that. He has a Jamal Murray who
he still tries it occasionally.
Absolute, yeah, we saw him airball a 3 last night, didn't we? But you've got Jamal Murray sniping. You've got Jokic. The guy's court vision is
he's unbelievable,
underrated, incredible. But
it's somehow still underrated.
Yeah, it is. But I do think as a team, we always asked Aaron to do too much.
Yeah.
And I think exactly as you've just said, it's a lesson in rebuilding properly.
Yeah. And that's generally my philosophy. Like, these are the 450 of, let's say, the 500 best basketball players in the world in the NBA. All of these guys are really good. The question is, can you be really good at this level, or are you really good at this level? And, sometimes you have to figure out, like, okay, this guy isn't an A player, he's a B player. And that's okay. B players are still really good and really valuable. But like, when you draft a guy, you want him to be an A player. And, there's expectations, there's belief in yourself. And sometimes you're just not that. And that's okay. And that's sometimes okay to discover about a player.
Yeah, I agree. So one final question. Denver or Miami, who's winning?
Oh, Denver's winning. I've been saying it's a hard 5. I've been calling it a hard 5.
Okay.
I think Miami keeps it competitive. Miami's going to come back in game 2 a lot better. And have a few things figured out, but like, I don't think they have an answer for Jokic. And I think Jokic, like,
very few teams do.
Like the way Miami plays is they try to frustrate you and get under your skin by just ball pressure and effort. And
zone
like
defense.
Yeah.
They can't do that against Denver, can they?
No, they can't. Like, Jokic sitting in the middle of that zone defense in the fourth quarter is just like it's unfair, because once that zone collapses around him, you're either giving him too much space, he's going to hit the jumper, or you're collapsing around him and he's just going to pick which pass he wants to make. Like, and they don't have the size to bug him, to bother him. I think one of the things that Minnesota did really well against him, and look, he had a good series against Minnesota. They still won that in 5. They were able to put Gobert and Towns on him and really kind of crowd him out with size. Miami doesn't have that size. They got Adebayo. They're not willing to go to Kevin Love. They have and Adebayo is a small center. They don't have the size to bother Jokic. And so they got to figure out a way to deny him the ball they got to figure out a way to create turnovers. But like Denver just seems so unbothered by Miami's pressure. And like Boston was bothered by Miami's pressure. Like Boston got frustrated with how much Miami was into them on the ball. Denver doesn't seem to care. Like Denver's not going to isolate guys. They're not going to like put guys on one side of the court, the other four on the other side of the court and let you load up against them. They're constantly moving. They're running screen and rolls. Like there's just so little you can do with them. And Jokic is just playing on another level. Miami's going to keep it tight because they compete so hard. And they'll have a game where they shoot really well. They didn't shoot particularly well in game one, especially early when they needed to. But Miami or Denver is just on another level right now. I find it really hard to see what Miami's going to do to stop them.
Absolutely. Philip, I know that you are on a very tight schedule and we can talk to you ad infinitum
Easily
about the Magic basketball, but thank you so much for joining us. It's been superb to get your views on the draft and on the summer for the Magic. And I suppose as a Leeds fan, I should say, enjoy as a Fulham fan staying in the Premiership.
Top half.
I know. I wish we'd have joined you, but hey.
hey, the championship is fun. You hopefully get to lift a trophy at the end of the year. That's at least how I viewed it. The first time Fulham went down, it's like, fine, we'll win a trophy next year. We'll be right back. You just hope you don't yo-yo. Yo-yoing sucks. It's the worst.
Right, I'm going to say that as a Leeds fan, I'm pleased that Fulham aren't going down with us.
Yeah.
Because we always had such battles for getting back between us. So, I'm not too worried about you staying up.
I'm just excited Fulham's coming to Orlando this summer. I'm really excited to see them in person for the second time.
It's going to be good for you, man. Well, enjoy your summer. And thank you so much, Philip. It's been a pleasure having you on.
Appreciate you guys as always.
Cheers,
Thanks,
Phil.
man.
Cheers.
Really good. I enjoyed talking to Phil. But now, boys, I think we need to talk a little bit about the NBA in total. So Boston, Miami, quick opinion on the impact of Tatum turning his ankle in the opening minute of Game 7. And did Boston choke? There's only one person I can ask this. G.
Oh my God. If ever was a game I wanted both teams to lose, this was it. Going into this game, right? I mean, I wanted it to go to 7 just so they could take lumps out of each other. Obviously, it's not nice seeing anybody get injured, but obviously that Tatum injury did impact him. Putting up only 13 shots in 42 minutes. He struggled on defense a little bit, only scoring 14 points. He did fill the stat sheets up in terms of rebounds, assists, etc. But he wasn't as impactful as you need your star man to be in a Game 7. So they did choke it because it felt like they got home and they thought, right, we've won now. We've done the hard part. We've won the 3 games to get it back to 3-3, and this should be a walk in the park. I'm not going to lie. I thought Boston would win that. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, I
but
thought so.
You didn't, Gary?
Couldn't see it being the 4 on the bounce.
No.
No.
I think the interesting thing is that Miami seemed to walk into an opponent's arena with confidence on what they've done in the playoffs so far, and you've got to applaud them for it. They've walked into opponents' arenas and gone, yeah, we can get a result here.
Yeah.
You've got to applaud them. I kind of felt that Boston almost thought the job was done.
Yeah, agreed.
I could be way off, but Tatum impacted. I was surprised that they left him in because it hurt the defense at times. He was really immobile. But yeah, I just thought that they kind of got the impression that the job was done.
And I guess you didn't get your Robin in Jalen Brown, picking up the slack either. When he shoots 8 of 23 and has 8 turnovers, you're going to struggle. And the first quarter was the least amount of points they'd scored. I don't know if it was all season. And then they had that stretch of the second half where you just expected it to come back, but just unfortunately Miami just kept hitting stuff. But let's just hope Denver can do a job now.
So the playoff finals kicked off last night. Denver versus Miami. I know we've touched on it with Philip there, but Gary, how are you seeing this one going? And what was your takes on last night?
I think Denver will win it in 6. That's my prediction. I thought in the first half, I was like, this is going to take some monumental collapse because it just seemed Denver handled them. I'm saying in 6 because I do think there is going to be a game where Butler's going to go off. And then it's just what could happen from there. I'll throw the other game in there for the sake of it for no real reason. I did have a very, very, very small wager on the game last night. And the very, very, very small wager was that I said, yeah, Jokic would go for 30, 10 and 10, and he had 27, 10. He basically, I missed by 3 points. On like a 6-1.
Oh,
but that was a sore one.
Gutting.
It's all the time. I jinxed it. 30 points. But I look at what Phil said, and I'm kind of in agreement with that. I think it's going to just come down to the fact that how do you handle Jokic? Bam Adebayo is a good player, but he's given up a lot of size, and we saw particularly in the first half, Aaron Gordon was getting what he wanted in the paint. I felt partly due to the size difference in there. Like you'd see him in there against the likes of Jimmy Butler and such, and it was just too much. So what do I expect going forward? I do think Miami are good enough to win at least one. I'll be interested to see if Kyle Lowry tries to injure Jokic. That could be like somebody running into a wall, which would be pretty funny to see. But something like that. But overall, I think Denver's just got too many weapons for Miami if they are fully healthy. So I would expect Denver to win it. The Heat just didn't seem to be able to lay a glove on them convincingly last night, but they will get at least one.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think that I can see it being a 4-1. I can see him getting 1.
Yeah.
And it's hard not to make an argument for why they couldn't perhaps sneak a second. It'd be interesting. I think it'd be an interesting series. I think there'll be a couple of very, very close games.
Let's hope not. Denver in 4, boys. I think they got way too much for Miami. I think Miami are just coming off, a grueling series with Boston. I think they're a little bit beat up. I think there's too much size there on that Denver team, too much talent. So Denver in 4.
Yeah, Denver definitely came out swinging last night, didn't they? Because the question about were they going to be rusty, it was a valid one. Because you've got Miami game ready, effectively, with having played so recently. But that altitude always. I mean, I know that they flew there straight after disposing of Boston. But it still takes a few days to get used to it. I think game 2 could be slightly more interesting.
Did you see on the sideline, Charles Barkley and Grant Hill were in like a studio and they had the oxygen. Don't know if that was just for a joke, but it's quite funny.
I think we've just got to touch on this. It's a late development, but the coaching hires. We've seen Nick Nurse go to the Sixers, Monty Williams to Detroit. And now, reportedly, Frank Vogel is going to the Suns, I think it is. So anything that makes you think, good hire. Gee, let's start with you, mate.
Well, Nick Nurse, obviously, very good hire for the 76ers. He comes from pedigree, winning a championship up there in Toronto. And, he's been given an opportunity to... coach Joel Embiid and whoever else remains on that Philadelphia roster. Will James Harden be back? That'll be interesting now because obviously they would have had conversations before he got appointed. And you just mentioned now that breaking one of Phoenix appointing ex-Magic coach Frank Vogel. Am I surprised? Probably a little bit, if I'm honest. And I can't imagine the Suns fans in the UK being extremely happy about it. But again, Vogel, he's a very good coach, defensive orientated, and he's got a championship. Well, with an asterisk from his time in the bubble, and the bubble title. So, good luck to them. Vogel was a good coach for us, so you wish him every success.
Let's. I'm hoping that the Nick Nurse to Sixers stops us being that team that everybody's talking about for Fred VanVleet, and he goes and joins his old coach.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Gary, what about yourself? What's your thoughts on this?
I think the Nick Nurse one's been the one I was really interested in because I just think he had his pick, whether he would go to Phoenix, whether he would go to Milwaukee, or whether he would end up in Philly. I'd be interested to see what his minutes rotation will be like when we find out what his team's going to look like in Philadelphia, because I think you've got to manage Embiid with minutes. We know he can do that with Kawhi Leonard, but I'm going to be interested to see what the minutes looks like. And the interesting one for me was the Williams hire in Detroit. Obviously, he's got like this record contract. He's been given like a monster deal. But when they did that, I actually thought of us, because Detroit's got a very young team as well. And I think they've hired Williams for the same reason why we've got Mosley, where they've gone for a coach who can work on relationships, can work with young talent, can develop young men. And I think that's why Jamal Mosley was hired in Orlando, knowing it was a rebuild, knowing that they needed a coach who was forward looking, who could build those relations and who had the patience to develop them. And we know we like Steve Clifford, but he didn't want to do that. And I think the hiring of Williams, you look at what he's done in Phoenix, we look at his character, etc. He's known for being relatable, being able to build strong ties, obviously being a good coach, but someone who's going to develop players. And I think with the younger generation, they don't necessarily want the hairdryer coach anymore. Yeah. So bringing in, like we mentioned Scott Skiles before in our previous rebuild, that isn't going to land necessarily with the current crop of youngsters. So when they hired Williams, I was like, that's actually somebody with experience, but it's a Mosley hire to do the same type of thing, develop young men. So I think that's an interesting one.
I think two of the three hires are really good. I'm not convinced yet about Vogel going to the Suns. I'm not sure that's what they needed. I don't know. But interesting times. Well, guys, I think that just about wraps it up this week. I've really enjoyed being back on. I know it's only a week, like I said, but it's been fun to get back in and talk some basketball. So to everybody, thank you for listening and watching. Guys, thank you for your company. It's been an absolute pleasure. Please hit subscribe to our YouTube channel, which is Orlando Magic UK, as everything is. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter at Orlando Magic UK. And until next time, from Gary, Geraint, and myself, go Magic.